Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panishevitz, and with me today, I have a very lovely German individual who is a coach who previously worked for Young and Beautiful in the European contenders region. He then moved over to North America, while not actually moving over to North America, to work with Mayhem Academy. But then he gets promoted. This dude is definitely someone that I'm excited to talk to. Please let me welcome Marvin Schröder, maybe better known as Promise. Welcome.
Hey, you at least tried to pronounce my last name, but
oh, good. Okay, how is it pronounced?
You didn't get close. Every single American that I talk to, don't feel bad. Every American that I talk to, literally every single one, can't pronounce my last name.
Okay, how's it pronounced?
It's Schröder. Like a lot of German sounds come like from the back of your throat, and that's like a non-existent like sound in English. So it's like,
yeah, it's
impossible to pronounce.
We're not used to like deep throating sounds in our voice. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't worry about it.
Like, I don't even think I could get that if I wanted. If you would have told me, I don't think I could have gotten that.
Don't worry. Like all the American, even when the management of MAME like books me a flight ticket, it's never written correctly because American keyboards don't have like the O with the dots above.
Yeah, I did notice that. No, there's no way. Like my last name is generally considered fairly hard for American standards, like Panishevitz, because it's Polish. But
I had no idea.
Yeah, most people don't. It's like Panasiewicz, and I'm like, no, it's Panishevitz, but thank you. But yours is definitely significantly harder than mine, and it's easier to spell. Like yours is easy to spell. Though if you heard it, maybe you wouldn't. So I'm excited to talk to you about a bunch of different things that we can kind of look into. We got to talk a little bit beforehand, and this obviously delves into a lot of who you are as a person, which is kind of neat because there isn't a lot out there on you as a person. You are a very exclusive. You're not really exclusive because you quite literally said, "I will interview with anyone. Just reach out." But there's not a lot of content
for sure
on you. So I guess starting off here, you reached out. What made you want to reach out to the public and say, hey, if you want to interview me, reach out? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
It's mainly, like, previously I was in EU contenders. Being in a considered minor region, I mean, EU is technically considered a major region, but all the attention is at NA contenders. Mm-hmm. Nobody gives a shit about me. Like, let's be real here for a second. Like, nobody gave a shit about me and Young Beautiful. Mm-hmm. So now that I'm in Overwatch League, I just kind of have to think about like the PR aspect more, like branding, like putting yourself out there. It's just like part of the job now. Mm-hmm. That I'm kind of trying to get used to, like being in front of the camera, like being in the spotlight, like reaching out to people, being available to talk to, rather than a lot of the coaches try to be like super exclusive, like I was before as well, where they just like kind of hide behind their players and they kind of just do their work in the back room and don't ever come out.
That sounds insanely creepy when you say it like that.
Well, that's kind of like coaches are.
I think it's one of the aspects about esports that we don't talk about that often, but because we always think of it as just a strictly competition, like even the way that it gets portrayed a lot of time is a competition, but really it's entertainment. Like the way it's an entertainment for people that happens to be competitive, but it's something important that I think people do need to realize and work on. And something that I think that a lot of people in Overwatch should probably work on is like being willing to be on camera and find some enjoyment in it. So you mentioned that you're from Germany. Where are you from in Germany?
I live near Hanover, which is like in the northern part of Germany. Mm-hmm. It's not like the furthest northern part, which would be like Kiel, which is like close to the water. It's like a little bit further down. It's not much to it. I think Hanover has like 500,000 in population. So it's like a smaller city compared to some like Berlin or Hamburg or Munich. But yeah, it's like I live somewhere like in a village close to Hanover. It's like 25 kilometers. No idea how much miles that are.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you because I can't. We don't deal with kilometers, so I don't really. I think it's probably like 30 something miles. I think kilometers are shorter than miles, if I remember correctly.
It's 15 miles.
Oh, 15?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. I had that backwards. It feels bad, man. So what was this area like? You mentioned that it's kind of, you're closer to a smaller city. So you were in a village. What was the population of your village like? And is that where you went to school, or did you go to school over in Hanover?
So I live in a village called Bissendorf, and the next close village is Mellendorf, and that's where I went to school. Yeah, it's like they just sound. There's like literally 6 or 7 villages that pretty much sound the same way. They're just written a little bit differently. So I went to a school in a village. We had like, how many students did we have? Like 1.5K total across like the entire school.
Okay, you make it sound like a small number, but that's about the size of school that I probably went to too. And I thought that was huge. Like for me,
I think it's definitely like a decent size. Right? It's not like super.
You're looking at like 100 kids, 150 kids a class, right around there.
I had like 30 kids in my class, and most classes were around like 25 to 30.
Oh, really?
So, but when I was still at school, that was like the time where we had like the most students. It's gone down by now. It's not that much anymore.
I forgot your German system has extra classes. Like we only have 12 grades in the American system. So like 1st to 12th. And I always get confused with the European class structure because it is different than.
I mean, we have you go to school for 12 years as well here.
Do you?
So it's the same way, yeah.
But don't you have like weird? You call it different things, right?
There's like we call different things. Like you can drop out of school at grade 9, for example, if you wanted to.
Really?
And but then you have to go to school mandatory for 12 years. That's how it is for everyone. But you have the option to drop out of grade 9 and then do an apprenticeship, which adds, you go to work and to school at the same time for 3 years, which adds up to 12 years again. Oh. I dropped out of school at grade 10 and did an apprenticeship. Actually, I dropped out of school at grade 10, then decided to continue going to school, didn't like it and dropped out, and then did an apprenticeship. So I wasted 1 year of my life doing nothing.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate. So, what did you drop out of school for?
Didn't enjoy it. It's like I was always in school, kind of lazy, never wanted to study. So when I went to like kind of like the medium difficulty school form in Germany.
Because there's 3 forms, right?
Yeah, it's like when you drop out of 9th grade, it's like the easiest school form, or considered the easiest. And then I went to like the medium, which goes to grade 10, and then you're done. And then there's like the hardest school form, which honestly is not that hard, but it goes to grade 12. So I finished the medium difficulty and went to the harder difficulty. But at the harder difficulty, I actually had to start to study. Like I never studied in my entire life before. I just kind of got good grades without doing anything. So when I actually switched to the hardest school form, I actually realized, damn. It's like in the subjects I was good at, I always got like straight A's, and everything else kind of failed. And since I'm lazy, I would like rather like abort mission, get out of there instead of continuing going to school.
Yeah, I think you're the 3rd German I've had on my show, actually, because I've had Amazing, Baroy, and now you. So we're getting up there. Actually, I won't lie. I think people from Germany are so far. They are winning in the amount of people who bet on my show. So I'm starting to learn a lot more about your guys' like school system and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. So what apprenticeship did you decide to do when you dropped out?
It's basically an IT apprenticeship, but more like there's like 2 forms, which one of them goes more into like software development. So you learn to like code, and you're mainly a coder. But I went into like the system administration part. So I was like more the server guy, like installing servers in data centers, like managing servers, virtual machines, like that kind of part for 3 years, and I finished. Okay. And then I got picked up from AM, so I never got to work in IT after my apprenticeship.
Are you grateful for that?
Yes, very grateful. I hated my job.
Okay, so let's move it back. What was growing up like for you? So, do you have any brothers and sisters? First of all,
yeah, I have an older brother and a younger brother. My younger brother is 1 year younger than me, so he's 20. And my older brother, I actually have to think right now. I think he is 3 years older than me. So he's 24 right now.
Okay. That concerns me that you have to think about your older brother's age difference, but
he moved out a while ago. It's like we were never that close. We just kind of accepted each other, got along, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So what was it like being the middle child?
God, it was awful. I mean, you ask anyone who's a middle child, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. You're always going to be the punching bag. It's just, that's kind of part of being the middle child. It's like my older brother and I, we just kind of had like this mutual agreement, like I leave him alone, he leaves me alone. Like we just live our lives. But my younger brother, every time he had the chance, he messes up. He's like, he started in, and I got in trouble with him every single time. So we would always, no matter if I was at fault or not, I would always get in trouble with him. If I was at fault and my younger brother wasn't at fault, he would always get in trouble with me. So we were kind of like a package deal.
Did that cause a lot of resentment towards your little brother? Because I would have had a lot of resentment. I would have been okay, dude, it's...
For sure. Like back in the days when I was younger, I was fucking pissed off all the time when that happened. Nowadays, I'm like, whatever. It's like we got older. We got over it. It's not that big of a deal. Just like kind of growing up with siblings.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one little brother. And we're 4 years different. So, but we were actually very close growing up most of the time. So you're growing up in this little tiny village town.
Tiny.
I did air quotes.
It's like 7K people live there, so it's not exactly tiny.
That's 7K people is pretty small.
Just depends on how you view it.
Just wait till you're in LA all the time. Like LA, comparative to that, it's...
Oh, yeah, I mean, for sure. Like LA is huge.
Like your definition of big and small needs to change relative to where you've experienced.
Sure.
Coming from a place that had right around a population of 7,000 people, it is small comparative to... I mean, there are obviously smaller places, but...
Yeah.
So, what did your parents do? Like growing up in this small little town?
My mom was like a stay-at-home mom for the majority of my life until we got to a point where she was like comfortable leaving us at home alone. It's like we just got older. It's like 13, 14. It's like at that point, you don't need anyone to watch over you the entire day. And then she went back to working mainly in like stores, so supermarkets, whatever she happened to work in. But usually it's like supermarkets. My dad is a real estate agent.
No.
So he's like constantly on the go, running from appointment to appointment, pretty much.
So did you not see your dad a lot of time growing up then?
I mean, just like any dad that works full time, he's gonna come home in the evening at some point, right?
Yeah.
So I got to see him every day, sure.
Okay.
But it's not like he didn't spend an insane amount of time with us every day because he had to work.
Okay. So were you closer with your mom then majority of the time growing up because you just spent more time with her? For
sure. I was definitely closer with my mom, but I always got along with my dad. Like no issues at all. Just like he works, he brings in the money, so he has to put in more work at while my mom takes care of the kids. The very traditional work split.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. So you're growing up in this small village. What was school like? You mentioned you only had roughly 30 kids in your class, and I know what that's like to have 30 kids in class. You know everyone, generally speaking.
I mean, it's like my class was 30 kids, but then we had like you're in German schools. You usually, at least where I'm from, you count up from it's like class A, class B, class C, class D, class E. So we were 5 classes in total for my kind of when I went to school. So it's like every class we were like roughly, let's say 150 people in total. So I knew every single one of them pretty much. That's just kind of going to school in the small village. You know everyone. That's just how it is.
Yeah. So what was school like for you? Where did you fit in the school ecosystem that is there? I know that I was definitely kind of a geek growing up, or I was definitely not the cool person for most of my growing up school. When I got to high school, or because I switched schools, it actually kind of changed. But I had a lot of bad habits because I went to a bad school that was there was a lot of violence. Like people would fight all the time. So so to put it in perspective, I remember one kid getting his face bashed in with an ice chunk and no one getting in trouble because if you said anything, then him and his friends, and this is small, they would beat the shit out of you later. So it was like everyone knew and no one would talk. It was like, and it wasn't like gang violence or anything like that. It was just a small school that if you talked, people would like beat you up. So I took a lot of bad habits to the new school that I went to, and I was definitely very like I remember sometimes someone joking with it. I was like, listen, motherfucker, if you want to handle this after school, we can go someplace and I'll beat the living shit out of you, but leave me alone. And so people didn't really pick on me or anything, but it was also a nicer school. So, but where did you fit in the school cycle? What was it like?
Actually, interesting. I don't think I like fit into a single category when I went to school. Like I got along like very well with the considered like cool kids. So I was like somewhat part of their circle as well. But I was never someone that would be like, hey, I'm part of the cool kids, so I can't hang out with the losers or the nerds. I was usually pretty friendly to anyone who approached me with a friendly manner. Although, that's just part of growing up. If you fuck with me, I fuck with you. That's kind of how I always dealt with it. So it's like if people started picking on me, get into a fist fight it out, you're done. That was kind of like the way I viewed it. It's like if you get picked on, you try to talk it out. If it doesn't work, you get a little bit physical and then you're done. That has worked with me. So I never got picked on if people tried, I just fought them until they stopped. And then we kind of moved on.
So, your school system as well. So in the United States, if you're in a smaller school system, normally means there's less opportunities for you as far as like different things that you can do and going into like different areas and stuff like that. So there's just like you cannot add as much like your functional like resume. What was there to do at your school? Did you do sports? Did you do different sort of clubs? How were you involved with your school that way?
We don't have like clubs or anything. That doesn't exist, at least in my school. I'm pretty sure it's like a thing if you're like in a school form where the days are long drawn out. But my days usually, they started at 8 and I went home at 1 p.m. So like pretty chill days. I never really, you usually go for like 6 hours with breaks in between, like in total. So, I had a pretty easy school life for most of my life. You kind of, you start at 8, get the two first hours over with, get a 20-minute break, next 2 hours, get a 20-minute break, next 2 hours, and you're done. So there was like no school clubs or anything. We just kind of got our curriculum and went through it. That's just how it is for everyone.
So you guys didn't have anything like band or was it stuff that you were forced to do or like football or
no.
And by football I mean soccer or
doesn't exist in Germany. But I was actually, when I switched from elementary school to like the medium school form, you had the choice in my school, which was just like a thing for my school only, where you have one single class in the school every year where you pick up an instrument, in my case, trumpet, and the entire class builds like an orchestra. So you would have like regular lessons with a teacher for your instrument specifically, as well as your music lessons weren't about like music history or anything like that. You were just like playing actual songs. So that was like my life for that school year. Obviously, if you're part of that class, you gotta get ready for the kids to be like, haha, play a music instrument, you nerd. But I never gave a shit. I enjoyed it. So
I played clarinet.
Yeah. I mean, I got lucky. I felt bad for the guys that played the music instrument you played. It's like you kind of automatically it's just like a feminine music instrument, so you kind of get picked on. I got trumpet, so nobody ever like gave a shit. It's like pretty manly music instrument. So
yeah, I learned guitar later on to try to counteract that, and also I chopped off my fingers, so I couldn't play clarinet anymore. So I was like done with this. Yeah,
I learned drums further down the road.
Okay, so you mentioned like learning drums and the trumpet. Was that a foray into music that you actually enjoy? Is that something that is part of your life that you really enjoy? Because you mentioned you picked up drums later on. I know I picked up guitar because I wanted to play in bands. Were drums kind of a similar thing for you?
It's just when I grew up, like as a kid, I would always like beat on my legs, like with your hands, like rhythm beats, just like kind of, for example, when we were sitting in the car, just driving, I would always like tap with my feet to the beat. So my parents at some point were like, you know what? It's like, you were annoying the fuck out of me. So there you go. We scheduled like a drum lesson for you. So try it out. And like when I first tried it out, like the teacher was like, damn, you're pretty good. And he was like, have you ever played before? I'm like, no, never played in my entire life. So it was like kind of something I picked up naturally, I guess. Mm-hmm. My parents have no explanation of why that's a thing, because they always say nobody in our family has like any feeling for like a rhythm or anything sort of like that. So I stopped playing after 1.5 years because, small town, your neighbors know you. They fucking hate you if you start playing drums in the middle of the day, So I just kind of was like, at some point, I don't want to upset people anymore. So I'm kind of done with that, even though if I had the choice right now, I would go back and just continue playing. Like, fuck what my neighbors think. I miss playing drums, but at the same time, it's like a huge money investment as well as like space investment. For example, right now in my room right here, I would have like no space for a drum kit at all. So that's like not an option. And we also had like no spare room or like a garage or anything where you could just like set up a drum kit.
So growing up, what was kind of like life like as far as like socioeconomic status, right? Like, were you someone who went on lots of vacations? Were you someone who didn't have a ton of money and you guys mostly stayed home and did things? What was life like that growing up?
I traveled a shit ton. I mean, I told you about my visa thing, so I had to reconstruct the past 15 years of traveling.
Yeah, so, we should explain that for everyone else. I feel like that's an important thing to talk about a little bit, if you're okay with it.
I mean, I don't really mind. I don't know if like the government minds me talking about it.
I don't think they'll care.
Yeah, they probably don't care. They probably won't even watch this.
No, I mean, if they do, I'm gonna appreciate the extra viewer that I had.
I mean, sure.
I got government agencies.
I mean, it probably helps me like establish more legitimacy. But basically, I went to the visa interview, and they put my visa on temporary hold, which they call it DS5535, which is like a new form they introduced, which is basically if they suspect you to be in some shape or form involved in terrorism or you're a threat for national security, they put your visa on hold, ask about your past history, and once that's cleared up, you just get approved and you're good to go. So last night I spent hours upon hours reconstructing the past 15 years of traveling, and the list actually got pretty long, not to lie. Like, I traveled a shit ton with my parents. Luckily, they allowed me to travel that much.
So what is the time frame on getting your visa approved now? Because it was approved, and then they secretly decided that, hey, we're not going to approve you anymore because you could be a terrorist, which is ridiculous. But hey,
I mean, I would expect if you have like the second best passport in the entire world, that people wouldn't assume like you're a terrorist. Basically, how it works, like my petition was approved, so technically, my visa is technically approved, but you're up to. You have to talk to an officer at a US consulate to get like the final stamp into your passport. Yeah. And that's where I'm at right now. So I have to wait for another 10 to max 30 days or even longer. That's the whole thing. They call it administrative processing, and they decide when they're done. Okay. So it could be after 4 years. They're like, yeah, cool, we're done now.
That sounds terrible, considering that you're an Overwatch coach now, and you kind of need to be in LA.
Kind of have to, yeah. But for most cases, it's like 10 to 30 days, considering I'm not involved in terrorism and nothing of my past history lets that shine through at all. I've been to the US multiple times. I always left on time, never overstayed, never was in contact with the police, no criminal records, nothing. There's literally no dirt for them to dig up. So good luck searching.
Okay, Marvin, so I'm going to tell you this. The best criminals are the ones that don't get caught. So maybe you're a super criminal, because that's... So right now you're looking at 10 days, and considering it is almost February 1st, that will put you at... You will either make it just before the stage starts or towards the end of the stage 1 start.
Yep. That's the reality right now.
That is an unfortunate reality for you, and I'm sorry about that. Our travel system is an interesting quandary. So you mentioned you've traveled a shit ton.
Yep.
travel by yourself? Your parents traveled?
Always with my parents.
Okay.
Always like the whole family, literally, like everyone.
Okay.
Wait,
so
let me actually.
When you say whole family, do you mean like your brothers,
Mom,
your parents, your grandparents, your cousins?
No, not that bad. Okay, not that bad. No, I mean like parents and my brothers. See, like I can actually show you if you look in the chat. Like that's the past 15 years of travel history for me.
Okay, so because I'm not good enough to show this to all of my viewers, we're gonna go through some of these. So we got Turkey, San Francisco, lots of Turkey. That's probably why they think you're like, oh.
I mean, it's just like for Europeans, that's like the kind of vacation country. It's always warm there. It's pretty cheap to get there. So
I want to go to Turkey, Chicago. You've been to San Francisco a lot too. So, what made you where did you guys decide to travel, and what was it like traveling to all these different places? Because you have Turkey, San Francisco, Chicago, Indonesia, LA. What made it like to travel in all of these different areas? Because I imagine that there's a lot of different cultures within these areas.
Sure. I mean, I was pretty young, so for me, especially like going to Turkey was mainly, you get into nice 4 or 5 star hotel, get into a pool, get free food like all week long, can eat as much as you want. So for me, that was mainly, I didn't really care much about like Turkish culture, as bad as that sounds. I was just young.
Yeah, 'cause you're a kid.
Yeah, I was a kid. Like all I cared about was, having fun in water. That's
and food.
Honestly. And food, yeah. Food, drinking, having fun, Like that's all I care about. And then it's like the California trips were pretty much like my dad is like super into America. Mm-hmm. Not enough to actually move there, but he enjoys like America for what it is, right? So we would always go from San Francisco, which is why in the list you can see like departures LA. So we'd go to San Francisco and then travel like up the coast to LA. Do like a round trip, see whatever we have to see, and then fly back. So it's super fun.
So now you've been to Chicago, and like Chicago versus LA, like if you go to the United States, there are definitely very big cultural differences between just places that you go inside the United States because we're so large.
I mean, it says Chicago, but we literally just landed and flew to Miami over Chicago. So I never got to see.
I didn't see the Miami, but even Miami to like LA is, I would guess, a very different
for sure
cultural different, and it's in Florida, and Florida is very, very warm comparative to like LA, which is perfect. I won't lie, LA temperatures are perfect, so that's why you pay so much. So you've been to all these different places. Were you someone who would go and do tourist stuff, or was it mostly just like what would you do when you go to travel these different places?
I mean, the American trips, so it's definitely like a lot of tourist stuff, like see Death Valley, Universal Studios, Disneyland, whatever, like all the different places, Key West, all the different places. Turkey was at the beginning, like you see, it's like a bunch of times we went to Turkey. So at some point you run out of tourist things to do, right? Yes. At some point you just went through all the typical tourist stuff, and all that's left is like this if you're like super into the culture, like how the country developed, blah, blah, then that was like not a thing. If you have children that are like 12, 10, they don't care about old rocks. So we kind of skipped that part. And then,
it's mainly care about old rocks. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm 21 and I wouldn't go out of my way to, study old rocks. But yeah, it was like mainly at the beginning, a lot of the tourist activities, like bus tours and whatever not. And then just hanging out at a hotel, pretty much.
Okay, so you're from Germany, and Germany is known if you're an American, Germany is really known for like a couple things like that is like stereotypical across the land of things. And I would say
don't worry, you don't have to soften up. Like you don't get offended in Germany. It's like whatever.
I'm not worried about you. One of the people who watch you is like, oh my god, Blake is I don't care about you. Don't worry, dude. So it's probably like beer and then like food. Those are probably maybe those are just things that I enjoy. But those are kind of things.
I mean, everyone who thinks of Germany is like beer, sausages, pretzels. I guess
Schnitzel.
That's kind of. Schnitzel is pretty good. Yeah. So that's kind of.
Have you been to different areas and tried their beers in comparison to Germany?
Okay, here's like one thing that might upset you. I don't drink beer at all.
Oh, okay.
I tried beer like once or twice in my life, hated the taste, and then just stopped drinking. Every time like I bring it up, it's like, hey, how come you're German, you don't drink beer? Like, that's crazy.
I was going to ask, does that put, like, is that in, like, when you say that to someone else who's like, I feel like that would almost, but maybe that's a stereotype coming through.
No, it's like, wow. in Germany, you say that to another German, it's like, yeah, it's fine, dude. It's like, if you don't enjoy it, you don't enjoy it. Like, it's no biggie. If you say that to someone outside of Germany, they're more upset than actual Germans are about me not drinking beer.
It's a stereotype.
It's crazy to me. It's like, everyone says, yeah, it's an acquired taste. You know, you just drink it. Tastes terrible at the beginning, but then tastes good. It's like, I'm not willing to torture myself with bad taste.
You're not a masochist.
Like, that doesn't make sense. It's the same with coffee. Like, all the people say, yeah, coffee is so nice. I hated it at the beginning, but no, I love it. It's like, yeah, I still hate it, and I don't feel like I need it in my life to function. So I don't drink coffee at all.
Okay. So you don't drink coffee. You don't drink beer. Do you have any vices? Do you smoke cigarettes?
No. I don't smoke cigarettes either.
So you're a very, I'm like highly impressed because normally like one of those three things, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Caffeine is, and coffee is a big thing for me. If you're looking at trying coffee that actually tastes good, because I fully agree that bad coffee just does not taste good. Sure. And I don't think you should torture yourself to enjoy something. Same with beer. There are some things that taste very delicious, and I was very much known for drinking fruity beers for a long time because of that. But if you try some cold brew, with like cream and a little bit of sugar, very, very good.
Oh, for sure. Like when I talked to Reprice about it on MAME Academy, he was like, yeah, of course coffee tastes shit. You put just as much sugar in as you need for it to taste good. It's like, yeah, I guess you can do that. But then again, why would I do that if I don't need coffee to wake up and I don't feel the need to drink coffee to be awake? So
yeah, you don't want to go through... I go through caffeine withdrawal, actually. So I don't drink coffee because it wakes me up, and it's never woken me up. But like going through withdrawals is the only reason why I drink caffeine now. Is so I don't go through withdrawals.
I worked in IT for 3 years. And if you know anything about IT, everyone drinks coffee. That's kind of like a thing you have to do. So I get to work every morning. It's like 9 a.m. sharp. Everyone starts running to the coffee machine. And I'm just sitting, it's like, I don't need coffee. Like, I'm just going to wait here for you guys then. It's just...
going through high school, was there any life experiences that you were really like enjoying? So like big ones are like prom. People go to prom sometimes. You mentioned there wasn't really sports. So was there anything that like really stood out that is like a memory from like growing up in school that you think is like something that you hold close to you?
I really enjoyed playing. Like we, as the class I told you about, it's like we would perform as an orchestra together, like at school events, blah blah, like for charity reasons. So that was always fun. And didn't really care about graduating. It's like for me, it was just like I get rid of a bunch of idiots that I never liked in my life. So that was the only good thing about it, pretty much.
Yeah,
I actually. At like graduation, they call up names.
Yeah.
If you have like if you have super good grades on average, I fell short 0.1 to be called up on stage. And I was so glad. I don't have to be on stage and stand there awkwardly. And there's like 800 people watching you, and you get like a handshake from your teacher who probably doesn't give a shit either. And you're kind of done with it. So I was really glad I dodged that bullet.
You quite literally dodged it by like as close as you could possibly dodge.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were so happy to kind of get rid of all the people. Did you have a lot of close relationships in school?
Yeah, I had a bunch of friends. For example, a friend of mine who still lives around here. We've known each other for how many years? 14 years by now. So like that's the one like main friend that I still like have around me. A lot of other people, they moved away.
Yeah.
They got jobs, they got girlfriends, they got their life going as well. So, I'm not gonna lie, if you work in esports from Europe and you don't get paid and you have to work full time as well, there's not a lot of time left in your day to go out and socialize. So I spend roughly like 2018 and in December, I started trying like really hard. I was like, I'm convinced like I can make it. I can make it in esports and Overwatch. And from that point on, I tried really hard. And I mean, it took me 10 months to make it. So I guess I wasn't wrong. I couldn't make it. But yeah, previously I started playing the game in like 2016 when it was released. It was pretty bad. Got replaced by British Kip, who's now going to charge actually. Like he got my spot back in the days on the team. And then I kind of went into coaching, but had to stop because I got chronically ill. And like nobody had an idea of what I have. So I was like not diagnosed for like 8 months, like going through pain every single day until finally, it was actually kind of a coincidence. I had the same doc for all my life and he tried different things and in that like 8-month time frame. And then he left like the facility where they had like multiple doctors and I got a new one. He just looks at me. It's like, hey, how much weight did you lose the past like months? I was like, 8 kilogram. Let me actually see how much that is in like pounds. It's like American. 70 pounds, 70 pounds. Wow. So that's like a lot. Yeah, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to take some like blood samples to test for inflammation rate in your blood. And I think like the normal value was around like 100-ish. And mine was at 1,890.
Holy God.
So it was like, so at that point he was like, yep, got to get you an emergency appointment. And then they figured it out, but it took them quite a while. So if that doctor didn't change, probably would have taken even longer time to diagnose me.
So what was it?
I got lucky. It's called Crohn's disease.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like, it's basically your intestines are inflamed like at all times. And it doesn't stop. And your immune system it's like, oh shit, inflammation in my body. I have to get rid of it. And like the over the top reaction of your immune system causes like stomach cramps, internal bleeding, blah, 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 like all the stuff. I mean, I got lucky. I have a like really like minor, like super soft version of it. So I was like pumped through with pills for months and now I'm good. So I have like almost no issues anymore. But there's people who are like, they're constantly in the hospital, like they have to get part of their intestines removed and replaced for like artificial intestines. So it can get pretty bad. I think like the next like super bad thing would be cancer. So it's pretty bad.
Yeah. So when did that occur? You said 2016?
So nobody has an idea where it comes from.
Yeah.
Like to this day, nobody has an idea how it develops. Like, is it genetic? Like who knows? So I probably had it all my life.
Yeah,
but it flared up.
Flare-ups, yeah.
Like flare-ups started in like 2017 around February. That's where like internal bleeding, stomach cramps started.
Okay, what were you doing during that time? Because you mentioned that you had been playing Overwatch, obviously, but were you looking at coaching then, or was that before?
Yeah, I was coaching at that time.
Okay.
I was coaching at the time, just like casually in tier 3, helping a couple friends. Like nothing serious. I wasn't trying hard to make it in esports.
Okay.
And I was obviously doing my apprenticeship.
Okay, you were at your apprenticeship. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
which is, I assume the reason they didn't keep me after the 3 years apprenticeship, I can guarantee you it's Crohn's. Because if you're a company and you're looking to keep someone, you know, oh shit, he's chronically ill. You know, you don't take your chances with those people. Really? If you can avoid it.
Yeah. I mean,
I would assume that's the case because I went to a lot of doctors, like a lot of appointments that I can't miss. So I was missing it word. Not that much, actually. Like there were people that missed way more workdays than I did, but you know, it's still like a considerable amount.
So, when do video games start to come into your life? First, non-serious. I'm going to break this out because there are two different.
Yeah, I was about to say it's like.
We need to break this. I need to set some parameters here because otherwise I'm going to get some shitty thing about I was 4 and I was playing Sega Dreamcast.
No.
So, PlayStation. Oh my God, dude, that makes me feel old. Like so, my first system was a Sega Genesis actually, but Nintendo was obviously. I think I played very briefly. We didn't own a Nintendo, but I'd played on other friends. So when you say PlayStation, that was like my third system, I think.
My first system was the N64 or that's the system I remember.
Yeah. So how were video games something that? Who brought video games into your household first of all? Was it your parents? Was it your brother who mostly wanted it, and then you kind of got the secondary, or how did that go?
Actually, not sure. Like my dad was obviously like super into computers.
Okay.
So for him, for example, he works as a real estate agent, but in his office, he's like kind of the IT guy as well. So he takes care of like server stuff they have, like email servers, whatever. So he kind of takes care of that as well. So I got like a PC when I was 7 or 8.
Okay.
So that was like kind of the first experience. And after that, it's just like kind of downhill as a kid. Like if you get hooked on video games, you just kind of keep playing and keep playing and keep playing until your parents just stop. And nowadays, like if you get older, it's like, yeah, I kind of don't want to play video games right now. Yeah. But yeah, back in the days, I played so much video games, way too much.
So
like if I had the choice to go to a party or play video game, I would choose the video games.
Yeah.
For sure.
I can relate to that. So we look at, you get your dad was obviously, he loved technology. He loved computers. And so you start off with, or you're playing computers at a very early age. When do competitive games start to become something that is a foray into your life? And then when do you actually start taking competitive games seriously to the point where you are dropping people who are bad, like your friends, who you're like, I'm gonna solo queue more than play with them? Because that's
for sure.
Yeah, so everyone is always like,
it
does happen. Anyone who plays games really competitively,
100%.
There's a
they
point.
drop their friends at some point.
There's a point where their friends get dropped because there's a
at
shit.
some point you just you just exceed what they are capable of so much that you just get frustrated with how they play.
Yes, for
sure. I actually think the first competitive game that I played was Counter-Strike Source.
Okay.
But I only played like on like these custom maps, like JA servers, surf servers, like B-Hop, kind of that stuff. I tried to play like a couple pucks with friends, but I was pretty bad, so I never like actually tried to be good. Mm-hmm. Then my older brother played like League of Legends. Like he started playing it, so I was watching him once and looked fun, so I downloaded playing it, and from that point, it went downhill. It's like I played so much League of Legends in my life. Way too much League of Legends. I never got good at the game, actually. That's the funny thing, because I kept like switching champions roles. Like I never really, if you really want to climb, you always get the same thing to play one role, limit yourself to like 2 or maybe 3 champions and just keep spamming them until you eventually rank up. But for me, it was like, I played this champion and then I played this champion. And then you look at your matches, so it's like 20 different champions. Like, shit, why am I stuck in gold 5? It's like, no shit, you play like 20 different champions and you can't play a single one correctly.
Gold 5 is pretty bad. I
mean, like I got to Diamond 5 eventually, right? But I never got higher than Diamond 5 because I never really tried getting higher. But at some point, I was just like, I'm going to play jungle only. No, I'm going to play top lane only. I'm going to play nothing but Aurelia. And then I went from Silver 3 to Platinum 1 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I was like, guys, you're garbage. I'm going to play solo queue only. We can play normal games if you want, but that's the extent I'm willing to play with you guys. I'm not going to do a queue with you. If you want to play with me, you better get me a different account and then I'm down to play. But even when I played with my friends in normal games, it's like, either I get 20 kills or we lose. That was like kind of the theme. I actually had one friend that I met online playing Minecraft actually, who was also good. So he would always play mid lane. I would play jungle. And we would just kind of kill all the bad people and like champions where they can't feed as much, and then just try to carry the game like with us two together. He would always be like, when I'm not playing, it's like, damn, you got to come back and play. We're just losing every day.
Mm-hmm. So what made you think about getting into Overwatch? So obviously Overwatch comes out, and I was a league elitist. Okay, I won't lie. I was a league elitist. So when Overwatch first came out, I was like, "What the fuck is this piece of shit that's good?"
Okay.
And I even gave it a shot and downloaded it, and then tried to play it when it first came out. Like, because I wasn't obviously in any of the betas or anything. So when it first actually came out, I bought it and I downloaded it and I tried it because everyone was talking about it. And I saw 6 of the same hero on like one team, and I uninstalled. I was like, we're not doing this. I'm not playing. I'm not going back to blind mode League of Legends where I don't like. So what made you think, okay, I'm playing League of Legends, I'm gonna get into this new Overwatch game?
Oh, I mean, at that point I was already like playing CSGO and other games. So I was not like as hardcore into League of Legends anymore. But then it's like Overwatch was released, like everyone's like, oh, it's gonna be the new TF2. I enjoyed like Team Fortress 2 back in the days. So I was like, why not give it a shot? Like I was sitting at work, day of release, downloaded the game, all my friends were playing. So I was like at work, it's like, fuck that shit. Go up to my supervisor, I feel really sick. I feel like I have to throw up. Do you mind if I go home? He's like, don't worry, buddy, go home. Went home, played Overwatch, played nothing but Overwatch until I hit 25 and then played ranked games. So it's kind of, and then after season 2 of competitive, I was like, that game is actually garbage. Like, I don't know why anyone would play that game. It's a terrible game. I'm not going to bother playing it anymore. I was like done at that point with the game. Probably mainly because of the fact I got kicked from my team. And that was like the main motivation to keep playing the game, because scrims are vastly more fun than playing ranked.
Yes.
Anyone who's never played scrims and just played ranked, go find a puck team, just scrim a bit. You're going to enjoy it. It's way more fun.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And after I kind of had some few attempts, like switching roles, trying to get back into the groove. Never got back into it. So I kind of went into coaching and stayed with that. And now I'm in Overwatch League.
So what made you think about going into coaching? Like, you're like, was it the thought process that maybe esports is a thing and I could maybe do this? Did you start off doing it for fun? At what point you get into this mindset of, I don't actually like playing the game, but I like coaching it?
So when I initially decided to go for like the harder version of the school, since that's what is required for you to study at universities, like if you don't pass the harder level of school, you can't go to universities. So that was kind of the thing that I felt like I had to do to get into studying. And I wanted to study English and become an English teacher. That was originally the plan that I wanted to do. But then I realized like, it kind of takes a bunch of years. You're going to get like shitty workouts, going to get shitty pay. You're going to have to deal with some pretty goddamn awful kids in your life. So I was like, kind of going into IT because that kind of combined, you have to speak English. I worked in an international Japanese company. So you kind of had like different cultures come together. So you had to speak English, and it combined like teaching aspect of, hey, that's how you use your computer. Don't be an idiot. That's how you do things. So Overwatch was for me an opportunity to combine video games and the teaching aspect in coaching together into one thing while speaking English the whole time, which was like the perfect thing to do for me. From my perspective, that was just like super fun. I wasn't trying to go pro at that time. I just kind of felt like, why not give it a shot? Like, why not see how things are? And I think the first team I coached was 6 diamond players who didn't even have a single idea on what a team composition is and how to execute it. So that's kind of where I started out at the beginning.
Okay, so you start to go through your coaching, and I'm assuming you just slowly start to build up into better and better teams, eventually going through. Where was the shift where you were like, I want to do this as a profession? Because obviously doing contenders, you've already decided I want to do this as a profession. I would imagine, because contenders is very close to getting there. It's close enough where I don't think I don't think you could be there and not have that mindset of I want to go pro. So where was the shift where you were like, okay, I need to start actually working on this? Because I'm imagining it was for contenders.
I mean, I coached a tier 3 team called Six City back in the days, which was just like my first real attempt at coaching outside of that diamond team where I just kind of fucked around a little bit. So you start out, you're terrible. Anyone who tells me a player can transition from a player to a coaching role and instantly do well, you're fucking delusional. Anyone who tries to tell me that, it's like, that's not how things work. You have to learn how to properly coach the game. So I kind of went through a lot of trial and error. My initially coaching was literally just screaming at people and being like, what the fuck are you doing? Not even explaining what is going on and how to fix it. Which obviously, that upsets players at some point. That being said, everyone on Six City, except for the one girl that I had to kick, sorry about that, by the way, is still friends with me to this day. I still talk to them every day, more or less, on Discord whenever I can. So we're still good friends, but that was like my initial trial and error period where I was like, let's try this method out. Oh shit, they hate me. Okay, let's try this method out. Hey, they actually like that. Maybe we should keep that. And then I started reaching up on like traditional coaching books and like teaching philosophies, blah, 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 and did a lot of research until it hit me with the chronic disease. So I had to stop for a couple months. And when I came back in around like December 2017-ish, I was just kind of, you know what? I think I'm pretty good. All the other coaches are idiots, so I might as well give it a shot. And I just kept pushing from the get-go instead of settling for a tier 3 team again. I pushed insanely hard for like teams with good players. Mm-hmm. And then I actually got lucky. I ended up on Portal of Gaming, which had like a bunch of players who would end up in contenders. But that team like imploded internally because I wasn't managing like the personalities correctly, because there was like never something I had to learn. And then I went from that team. 2 of the players ended up on Young and Beautiful, and they were like, we kind of need a coach, I think, but I don't really know anyone. Oh, do you remember this dude? I think he was okay-ish, might as well give him a shot. So they gave me a tryout. And after 2 hours, they were like, damn, this guy's 200 IQ, big brain. And then I just kind of got the spot and went instantly into contenders trials without like going through all the tier 3 teams that other people have to go through. So I definitely got lucky in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a lot of things that I kind of want to talk about these like learning experiences. And one of the things you mentioned is managing players and personalities, for sure. Which is something that I would like to talk about because I work in mental health and I think it's something cool. So what is your philosophy on managing players?
So for me, I think that's just kind of German culture bringing into the coaching aspect. For me, it's like, for example, when I got into MAME Academy, we got all the players in the apartment. I saw the full 6 roster that we had for the first time. We did a presentation to kind of, set the expectations for each other. That's who I am, getting to know them. I literally sat down. It's like, at some point throughout the season, you're going to be like, promise you're a fucking asshole. That's going to happen. I'm your head coach, and I'm mainly going to be your head coach. We can be friends outside of scrims. Sure. Like no issues with that. But inside of scrims, I'm your boss, and I'm going to treat you like that. You're my employee in that regard. So if I tell Paintbrush, you're going to play Lucy on that map, I don't want him to argue with me because I don't fuck with that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the coaching philosophy I have, like straight expectations and rules and being strict while still like being encouraging and like letting them know. It's like, for example, I remember like one moment in scrims where we were attacking Numbani first point, mm-hmm. and Paint did like the best call I've ever heard him make. And I was like, Paint, that call was fucking godly. And they appreciate a compliment like that much, much more than when you throw them out all the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm like kind of the dad that doesn't love you that much. But when he gives you a compliment, you're like, damn, that feels great. So that's kind of like how I would describe my coaching in terms of head coaching.
Yeah. And so I want to make sure we make some clarification, because you mentioned before in the past that you just screamed and yelled and kind of like degraded people. And I want to make sure we clarify this, because otherwise someone's going to be like, oh, he's the dad that doesn't love him and screams, yells, and degrades. What is your approach on giving negative feedback? What is the best way to deliver that? Because you mentioned before you would scream and yell and stuff like that, and you don't think that that's good based on what you said. So what is your way to give negative feedback?
For me, it's like how Apply described it once to me. It's like after every round, I come in, unmute myself, and just give them like the no bullshit kind of rundown. It's like, that's where we fucked up, and that's what I want you to do the next time. So players don't get upset at coaches if you tell them you just fucking fed your ass off there. But that's how you do it differently in order to help your team win. Because players just want to win. Like they don't care about like the sugarcoating part, as long as you let them know that's how you have to do it and that's how you fix the problem. Mm-hmm. And that's how I kept it that way, because I coach like every single like coacher, basically. I coach EU players, I coach NA players, I'm coaching Korean players now, and none of them complain so far. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be working most of the time.
Okay. So you actually mentioned Korean players because you're dealing with primarily coming up here an all Korean roster minus like what Tvik? Is Tvik the only one? I think Tvik's the only one.
Tvik and Apply. Yeah.
Apply. Yeah. I forgot about that. So you have two players who are not Korean, but the majority of the roster is definitely Korean. How do you expect to handle that, considering that there is a language barrier, I imagine, for most of those players?
I mean, first of all of them speak good enough English to understand most of what you say.
Okay.
They have issues. Yeah, they have issues answering you, but from an understanding point, they're just like, okay, I get that. Because again, I said it in an interview before, certain things in Overwatch, they transcend like language barriers.
Yeah. Like
even if you're Korean, even if you call Zarya Bubble differently, if you heard it a bunch of times, Zarya Bubble, you can connect the dots without speaking English and you know what they're talking about. The rest can be bridged via like showing images, like moving pictures of heroes around, like showing videos, blah, blah, as well as we have a translator. We have the Koreans get English lessons as well. So there's a bunch of stuff we do to bridge the language barrier. So far, I haven't felt like, obviously it's easier for me to explain to fact fiction in detail how he has to play in different scenarios than it is for me to explain it to Swan, for example. But it's still possible and the point still gets across. You just have to get in the mindset of, I have to break it down a little bit more for them to understand. You can't use like super hard English.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, you mentioned how you took you were in control of your teams functionally, and that you were the one dictating. So we look at the season you worked with Mayhem Academy. Not the best results that you guys would have liked, obviously.
Whatever.
I know.
I mean, yeah.
I was going to ask how much of this is a philosophy of you were happy with what happened versus you think that you were responsible for the results? Or did you achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Okay, so going into the meta, we were hoping that we can build our team around Shax and Apply because both of them are insanely good DPS players. They are super flexible. So we were building a team around them, 2 DPS players. We get into the season, we experiment a little bit with DPS comps. I got a lot of shit for that. It's like, why don't you play GOATs? Well, I'm the firm believer of I make my own conclusions. I don't let other people make conclusions for me. Yeah. And I saw the possibility that it is possible, although very hard, but it is possible to play into GOATs without playing GOATs. Mm-hmm. So we tried that, didn't work out. We made the conclusion for ourselves. It's not worth the amount of effort you have to put in order to win with DPS comps compared to playing with GOATs. Yeah. The issue was why I didn't want to go into GOATs is, partially it's like shitty player representation. Nobody's going to pick up a Zarya one-trick pony for Overwatch League. And I want my players to be picked up for Overwatch League and be attractive to be picked up. But as well as Fact has never played GOATs because in Overwatch League, GOATs wasn't a thing most of the time. Yeah. So he had no experience of it. Manitin, no experience on GOATs, even though people keep playing they're Overwatch League players, they have to be good. Yeah, but they have never experienced that meta, so they're learning the meta just as much as everyone else is learning the meta. So in that regard, someone who came up from Open Division and played GOATs for the majority of their season, they have an advantage over these Overwatch League players. Mm-hmm. Apply, Zarya was the one hero that happened to not be in his hero pool. Shax, same thing. He'd never played Zarya. Obviously, he's like a super good hit scan player, but Zarya, it's like, yeah, sure, the left click part is hit scan, but all the other parts are still like very unique to Zarya. So he had no idea how to play Zarya. Shax wasn't talking enough to play Brick, so I kind of had to like mix and match and see, what works better, Shax on Brick or Zarya, or Apply on Zarya or Brick. And then you have a team from the core up that doesn't know how to play GOATs. Mm-hmm. So if I can avoid playing GOATs, I would rather avoid that because let's be real, the season's 5 weeks. I only have that much time. So in that regard, I'm very happy how the season went. I took a team that had no idea how to play GOATs to we were the closest team to beating Fusion University on GOATs. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, we made a lot of progress. Sure, it doesn't show in the results. Sure, Reddit is going to look at us like you 1-4, why you know Overwatch League? But that doesn't bother me really. Like for me, in terms of coaching, if my players are happy with the work I do, that means much more to me than Reddit's approval of my results. Because just like in League of Legends as well, just because a team is losing doesn't necessarily mean like the coach is awful. Like there's more that plays into it and you don't always know what's happening behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not trying to excuse myself. We went 1-4, we lost. That's on me. I could have 100% done a better job in order to win more games.
I mean, you were working with what you thought you had. Do you think that were you responsible for a lot of the scouting for Mayhem Academy?
No, when I got hired for Mayhem Academy, they already had a list of players. Although I had input on that list, so I could like take people out or add people. So it wasn't like I wasn't included in the scouting process of players. I definitely had a lot of say in the roster and like who gets the spot, but it was like a joint venture. Like the Overwatch League stuff helped, the management helped, the academy stuff helped. So we were like all coming together trying to build this roster.
Okay. So, because it sounds like it sounds like if there was a mistake to be declared on that team, it might have been more on the scouting than it was actually on the season. And so that's what I was going to say is looking at that, I imagine you didn't have a lot of say in the Mayhem roster coming in here. Because you were brought in after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you were brought in afterwards. So a lot of people were very critical. I want to say of like Mayhem and the decisions Mayhem has kind of made. And I think this helps clear up some of the things, like especially with like the language barrier, something that people have talked about a lot, being like, what are they going to do? They have 2 English speaking coaches who are dealing with, which I'm really happy we got to kind of clear that up. So, but we talk about scouting, and one of the things you've said before in the past is that there's 3 things that you think are important to look for, and that is mechanics, communication, and attitude. How do you scout some of these things? Because they are very subjective.
I mean, especially the attitude part is almost impossible to scout because let's be real. If you're a player and you happen to be like a tilter or like you're a rager and you go into tryouts, even the most hardcore ragers and tilters, they're going to get their shit together for the tryouts. Like if you give them 4-hour blocks, they're not going to go apeshit crazy on their teammates that they're trialing with at that point. So that's in general a pretty tough part to scout. We had like some tilting and frustration issues, which I'm honestly pretty proud of myself. Fixed that completely. Like all the players changed like mentally completely. Mechanics are obviously easy to scout. You just watch them play and you can see like the decisions they make, how they like handle certain scenarios. And the communication part again is pretty tough. For example, when we tried apps, he came into our tryouts and almost didn't say a word. So we were obviously like, he's out pretty much. But we made the decision, you know what, let's give him a heads up, let him know why we are not happy with how he plays right now. And he comes into the next block and is completely changed. Completely changed, constantly talking, constantly trying to engage with his teammates. So that's obviously for us in terms of scouting. Hey, this guy has potential in terms of mechanics and he seems to be coachable because he can change. One of the hardest things to change is your communication. He can change that in like a finger snap in one day, which is like a super good attribute for a player that you want to move up to Overwatch League at some point or sell to someone.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're talking about the tier 2 a little bit. What do you think is the point of the tier 2 scene? Because there's been a lot of debate of like, what is the philosophy behind it? And I think it changes for teams. Some people think that, hey, this needs to be a farm team. Some people are like, oh, this can be a moneymaker, which I don't necessarily agree that a contenders team will ever be a moneymaker. No. I think you're going to always lose, maybe eventually, but I think right now you're not. I don't think you're making money off of contenders most of the time. I think you will lose more than you will gain based on how you have to pay people. So what do you think is the philosophy? Yeah, what do you think is the philosophy of tier 2?
I think it has to be a mixture of player development. I mean, it's partially the system of contenders doesn't allow you to just solely focus on, hey, that's the player I want to develop. That's how I want them to be so I can move them up. So there has to be like a mixture of, you have to win games to sell players. Nobody's going to buy players from a team that then went 0-5. Skyfoxes, for example, they have some good players, but nobody's going to look at Skyfox and be like, hey, Claris is a good DPS player. I want to pick him up because they lost like every single map. So it has to be like a mixture of winning as well as like keeping the player development part in mind, because obviously, let's say we are in a meta where GOATs is an option, as well as like other options are also available, but the other options are much, much harder to play. So there's going to be coaches that decide, we're only going to play GOATs because it's easier to win with GOATs than trying to learn all the other compositions, but it's going to make your players bad. So even if they get a tryout, they're not going to perform in a tryout. So you kind of have to have like a mixture. I wish they would draw out the seasons a little bit more. So you have, for example, we shit the bed at the beginning of the season, and towards the end of the season, we started popping off and like started looking better as a team on Mayhem Academy. But at that point, it was already too late. Like we lost already. There was no coming back. So if we had 2 or 3 more weeks in that season, we might have gotten those last 2 or 3 wins that we needed to qualify in order to get into playoffs. So Contenders is meant to move players up the Overwatch League, but is also discouraging player development and growth because the seasons are so short.
Okay.
Which that's the main problem I have with Contenders right now. I don't care if there's no LAN. Obviously, having a LAN is great, but that's not the main issues that I have with Contenders.
Do you think that what do you think needs to be done for Contenders to improve? Do you think it needs to be on team side? You mentioned the season, that's obviously more of a Blizzard thing. But do you think that Blizzard needs to get more involved with Contenders in general, or just based on the season and improving the season?
For sure. Like I remember in season 2 of Contenders, when European Contenders started, they highlighted Contenders, the European stream, in the Blizzard launcher. And we had our first match, my team against British Hurricane. And that match had, I think, like 20,000 viewers, which is absolutely insane for Contenders these days. Like Contenders usually gets like 5 to 8K maybe-ish around that mark. So start like actually pushing for Contenders to be a full-on product. It's in their best interest as well, since they're investing money into something, but they're not earning the return by like at least do the bare minimum of tweeting about it and putting it in a launcher, because you put Aspen or Craggy or whatever streamer like the Fran always in the fucking launcher. Like great for Aspen. She's having a great streaming career. But honestly, like why does Aspen deserve to be highlighted in the Blizzard launcher, but Contenders does not? That doesn't make sense to me. So that's like push Contenders as a product, or if you don't want to push Contenders as a product, give it to ESL. Let ESL manage it, or give it to, I don't know, like face it. Let someone else take the reins and let them build a product out of it. Let them invest their money into it. But Blizzard hates giving up control. So they like to keep everything under wrap for them to control, which is the issue. Like they want to keep control of Contenders, but they also don't want to work hard to make Contenders a good product.
It's very unfortunate for anyone who's in a tier 2 scene right now. I wish that there was more development going on with the tier 2 scene. I
mean, to be fair, like one thing that bothers me all the time is players being like, I'm a tier 2 player, but I'm not being paid several $1,000s a month. It's like, welcome to esports, buddy. That's not much different in other esports sides as well. For example, League of Legends for the longest time had no academy teams, right?
Yes.
You were either part of an LCS team or you were fucked. There was nothing else you could really play for. That has changed over the years, right?
Yeah.
But it took time to build that product up for it to change. And I have never heard anyone be like, oh, League of Legends is a shitty esports title because you can't make a living in tier 2. Everyone kind of accepted how it is, more or less. Or at least from my perspective, I obviously wasn't involved much in the esports. I was more of a viewer, kind of like a lot of people view Overwatch right now. Yeah. And for me, it's different because I'm inside the scene.
I think that's true for all scenes in their tier 2. Like you had to have the tier 1 fully grown and kind of like on its rolling path without help anymore. And I don't know if Overwatch is quite like, we've seen major changes this year with the season already, with how they're changing their structure and the games and all that. So Overwatch League in itself isn't fully developed yet. So I can kind of understand that thought process going on there, which I think is a good place to actually end this interview. We've covered a lot of stuff and the hour has flown by quickly. So I have one question that is fairly easy towards the end. And I even pre-balled this question to you. So you get to have it early because I see people struggling all the time. If you could have any one person on the show, having experienced this now, what this all-encompassing thing is, who would you have on the show?
I think it would either be Iostux, because obviously, he's also a German coach, get your German quota up on your channel, get one more in. But I think Packing 10 would be a great candidate. Just like Packing 10 is one of the older coaches, he has a lot of life experience. He was part of the military, I believe. So he has like a lot of stories to tell that might be pretty interesting to your average viewer. And yeah, I think he would be a great guest. And I'm sure he would be down. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if he's down with the camera part, but I'm sure we would be down to talk.
Well, he has to be down with the camera part. I need to see his beautiful face. That's how this works. I need visual representation for me. So I want to thank you so much, Promise, for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed my time. I hope you've enjoyed your time. If you didn't, well, too bad. Keep it to yourself. So do you have any shout outs? Most people don't, but if you do, I'll let you have them.
I mean, I don't really have any shout outs. I just hope that Reddit as a whole stops looking at Florida Mayhem as like this shitty organization that just mistreats everyone, because I've been part of the organization and I chose to be part of the Overwatch League team. I had the option to leave for another Overwatch League team, but I decided not to do it and stay with Florida Mayhem, which I think says a lot about an organization. If I'm, as a coach, willing to be part of like the second to last team and still work with them, like, I really enjoy my time. I can't wait to get back to LA and see everyone again. So I'm hoping that Reddit at least gives us like that little bit of grain of salt, just like give us a chance, don't shut us down every time we try to make changes. Okay. Not everything is bad. Tivik is not a bus driver anymore.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. Hopefully you have enjoyed this show as much as I have. And until next time, have a good day.